Now, to discuss this news further, I am also joined live now by former Marine Corps Intelligence Officer Scott Ritter. Scott, welcome to RT International. Obviously, we have a very fluid situation here. But in your opinion, was Putin's decision to launch this special military operation inevitable?
Absolutely. I mean, it could have been prevented. It could have been prevented 2 days ago, a day ago. All that needed to happen was for Ukraine to say, we will not be part of NATO and we will comply with Minsk. And then I believe this would not have happened. But that was never going to happen. The United States and NATO had been dangling the false promise of NATO membership to the Ukrainian government. And the Ukrainian government, well, now they're paying the price.
Mm-hmm. Now, we've already seen the West's reaction a day or two ago. They've imposed sanctions on many Russian individuals, on a number of banks here in Russia. What do you anticipate further from the West in terms of sanctions?
Well, it's clear that the United States and the European Union have additional what they call tranches of sanctions. They may implement them all now because there's no reason to hold it back. The Russian government has made it clear that this is a decisive operation. It's going to demilitarize Ukraine. That implies a scope and scale greater than simply operations in Donbass. I think it's going to be, no holds barred when it comes to sanctions. The danger here is in listening to the Ukrainian ambassador, this talk of Article 4 under the United Nations and also, an Article 4 discussion under NATO. I think President Putin made it clear that any external intervention in what's going on will be responded to in a decisive manner. I think right now we have a lot of people who are very emotional, and some people feel frustrated that they didn't think this was going to happen. And now that it's happening, they're frustrated that sanctions aren't, not only didn't stop it, but aren't going to stop it. And they're looking for other things that can be done. And they might try some muscle flexing. And this is a very dangerous situation. So, it's a little late to be thinking about flexing muscle now.
Well, yes, it was what was widely seen as the ultimate sanction was cutting Russia off from the SWIFT banking system. Do you think that's on the table now? There's a debate. I think that people would like to do it, but I think there's also been some people saying that there could be horrific ramifications for the economy of Europe and indeed the United States if this transpires. So we'll find out. Like I said, emotions are riding high right now, and there's a lot of pressure on politicians to be seen as doing something decisive, and SWIFT is very decisive. But, if calmer heads prevail and recognize that you'll be doing more damage to yourself than Russia, for instance, by imposing this measure, maybe they won't. Mm-hmm. Now, we've seen as well the West has pumped in hundreds of millions of dollars of lethal aid to Ukraine. Do you expect that to be ramped up in light of this development?
No, there won't be any more military aid going into Ukraine. It's over. I believe that this is going to be a very large-scale operation that encompasses the totality of the territory of Ukraine, that will fulfill the objectives set by President Putin in demilitarizing, and Russia is going to inherit about $1 billion worth of Western weapons that are sitting in warehouses right now, those that aren't destroyed by Russian strikes, and it's over. Game, set, match. It was a silly game that the West was playing and propping Ukraine up with a false promise of lethal weapons. There's no lethality to these weapons. These weapons are in warehouses. If they're in the hands of any Ukrainian troops, they're going to be dead. That's just the reality of war.
Well, talking about this military conflict or potential military conflict, on the one hand, we had President Putin. He was asking the Ukrainian soldiers to lay down their arms. On the other hand, President Volodymyr Zelensky, who has called for peace, but said that he would fight back given what he calls this Russian aggression.
What do you expect Kiev's response to be?
I think this is out of Kiev's hands. Events will unfold rapidly. I'm not going to denigrate the courage of the Ukrainian soldier, but when you have no ability to communicate, when you have no ability to maneuver, and when you're confronting certain death, surrender is the option of choice. And I think that the Russians are going to be processing far more Ukrainian prisoners of war than they will be killing Ukrainians. But those who choose to fight will die. They stand no chance. And hopefully they're listening to the Russian president's admonition, and they will put their weapons down and go home. The Kiev government literally has no cards to play. They can't communicate with their soldiers right now. They can't communicate with anybody. So they're sitting wherever they're sitting and doing nothing, because that's all they can do.
Well, a previous guest I spoke to about 10 minutes ago, the political analyst Alessandro Bruno, he said that the West appeared only to remember the existence of the Minsk Agreement about 48 hours before this situation. Do you think that's true, and are they dead in the water now?
The Minsk Agreement, as it currently exists, is dead in the water. It's a non-player. It's not going to happen. It's been, overcome by events. And yes, I agree. The West suddenly remembered Minsk and said, "Hey, we need to do this." Well, you had 7 years to do it, and you didn't. You could have pressured Ukrainian government to implement it. You didn't, and now you're paying the price. Now, that doesn't mean that a Minsk type, agreement won't be revived once Ukraine has been demilitarized and in this situation, because at the end of the day, a decision is going to have to be made about the future of the Donetsk and Lugansk. Are they going to remain independent, or will they be reintegrated into a Ukraine that respects, their autonomy and the rights of the Russian-speaking population? Who knows what the end game will be? There might be a role for a Minsk-type agreement down the road, but the current Minsk agreement, no, it's finished.
Well, former Marine Corps intelligence officer Scott Ritter, thank you very much for your take on what's a very fluid situation. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you in the not too distant future as it unfolds.